Hello everyone, this is part of an ongoing series that we refer to as Tarot in Depth, and today we are covering the Magician card. Before I get started, I just want to be clear that the interpretation of the Magician card has varied significantly throughout history. The earliest versions of the card depict a figure associated with sleight of hand and trickery, performing games on the street. Only later did decks begin associating the card with a figure practicing occult or esoteric magic. So there is this huge variance across, centuries. And I'm going to be covering both of those as a meaning that you can bring to interpreting this card. So, all right. The Fool's Journey or the Magician's Journey. In many divinatory interpretations of the tarot, the sequence of cards from the Fool through to the World is referred to as the Fool's Journey. In some interpretations, this culminates with a return to the Fool, with the Fool being considered both the first and last card of the journey. In other interpretations, the journey culminates at the Magician, and a new journey begins, the Magician's Journey. In the Tarot de Marseille, Le Bateleur is the active principle, and the major arcana are interpreted as the Bateleur's journey, rather than the Fool's journey. In the interpretation of the Tarot de Marseille, it is the Magician, not the Fool, that is considered the querent card. As the first card of the series, the card stands for the beginning of something, a new cycle, a new life, a new path to enlightenment and to knowledge. Let's get into the history of the card. In the earliest known depiction of the Magician card from the Visconti Sforza deck from circa 1450 CE, the Magician is titled Il Begato and is depicted in a red robe and hat before a fold-out table of tools. He is shown holding a long stick in his left hand. Laying on the table are the tools of his trade, a cup, 2 coins or orbs, a knife, and a fourth, rather ambiguous object, often interpreted as a stick or baton or wand. The stick, cup, coins, and knife are often interpreted as representing the 4 suit symbols. In the earliest known list of the trumps, the Sermons de Ludo Kumali, also called the Steel Sermon, circa 1470 CE, the Magician card is referred to as Primus Deciter el Bagatella et est omnium inferium, and is labeled 1. El Bagatella can be translated 3 ways from the language usage when the sermon was written: a small thing of little value, a game or entertainment of sleight of hand or skill. The game of cups and balls would be the best well known that existed at the time of the sermon, or a fraudulent action or fraud. A bagatella at the time would have been a form of street magician, not a great wizard or magician who was advising kings, but rather someone like a mountebank or a street juggler, performing light and fun illusions. In the Solabusca deck, the earliest complete extant example of a 78-card tarot deck from the late 15th century, the Magician is titled Panfilio. In the depiction, the figure is shown walking away from the viewer, holding a folding table under his arm, wearing a red head covering topped with a golden pointed crown. Panfilio translates roughly as friend to all, kind to all, loved by all, but also as lazy and slothful and easy-mannered. Later in Italian, the card was also referred to as Il Begato, with the same connotations as in the Sermon de Ludo Kumalis. On the Rosenwald sheet, the bagatella or bagato wears a jester's cap with bells or pom-poms. He holds a stick in both hands and several coins lay scattered on the table. The carry sheet shows the bagatella bagato seated at a low, ornamented table along with goblets, knives, and coins. He also possibly holds a stick or baton in his left hand. In French decks, the Magician card is the mountebank. a kind of sleight of hand artist, a practitioner of stage magic and of street illusions. In many of the French decks, including in the Jean Noblet Tarot de Marseille, the card depicts dice on the magician's table. Before the invention of the tarot, either as a game or as an occult tool of divination, dice were commonly used for both divination and for gambling. In the Tarot de Marseille, the magician card is called Le Bateleur, which is defined as one who does conjuring tricks. Le Bateleur represents a skillful, sharp-witted, talented magician or trickster, sometimes a charlatan, sometimes an almost fey magician. Le Bateleur could also be a stage performer, as an adept acrobat and actor. Le Bateleur is depicted in the Tarot de Marseille as a young man with curly blonde hair and a colorful appearance. His hat bears the vague appearance of a lemniscate. On his three-legged table lie the tools of his craft, essentially, again, the four suits, with the addition of dominoes, which are often taught as representing the force of chance. The Mantegna Tarocchi, circa 1450 image that corresponds with the magician, is labeled artisanal, the artisan. In the engraving of the magician from Corte Gabelin's Le Monde Primitif from 1781 CE, illustrated by Mademoiselle Note, the reader is told by Corte Gabelin that the magician is simultaneously a lowly street performer from Egypt and the holder of the divine wand of the Magi. In the Atala-style deck Jeu de la Princesse Tarot, also called Tarot Egyptians, from 1843 CE by Lorenbert under the pseudonym Johannes Trismegisti, the magician is portrayed as a ceremonial magician with an altar and a wand, but the title of the card, Melancholy, Les Faux Divines, translates as melancholy, the false soothsayer. Occultist Oswald Worth, circa 1887 CE, turned Le Bateleur from a Montbank into a magus in his deck based on the Tarot de Marseille deck. In the Waite-Coleman-Smith Tarot deck, 1910 CE, the card was renamed the Magician, turning the depiction from Le Bateleur as a Montbank into a magus, an overtly magical figure who is more associated with wisdom than with trickery. His table more clearly holds the suits of the minor arcana, cups or chalices, coins or pentacles, and swords. The fourth, the baton or the wand, is represented again in the magician's hand. The magician's varying place and role. In the games of Tarocchi and the French Tarot, Le Bateleur is the lowest ranking trump card, as the Fool card was a wild card rather than a trump. He is one of the bouts, or ends, in the French game of the Tarot. Winning or taking a bout with Le Bateleur card held a special scoring significance. In most tarot games, the Begato is the lowest ranking trump card, but worth a lot of points. Therefore, many players want to take a trick when it is played. In most games played out of Italy, winning the last trick with it awards bonus points. In Tarocchini, the Begato still serves as the lowest trumps, but it has an added ability. During score counting, it and the Fool can function as limited wild cards called contatori, counters. They can be used separately or together to fill missing gaps in combinations that they can't fill in two consecutive gaps in sequential combinations. They can't replace the highest trump or king. Both cards can be used in every sequence, but as the Fool can't be captured, while the Magician is very vulnerable to capture, the player holding the Magician would want to use it far more carefully than the Fool. In Sicilian Tarocchi, the Begato is the second lowest trump, outranking an unnumbered trump called Miseria that is of no significance. Just as in the Tarot, the Mantegna Tarocchi has the Magician as the second of the series, outranking the Beggar. Now let's move into some of the various interpretations from the better-known schools of thought as to interpreting tarot in a divinatory or occult way. We'll start with the probably best known, which is the Rider-Waite-Smith. In the Rider-Waite-Smith depiction, the magician has a wand in his hand, lifted towards the sky, while his other hand points at the earth. This iconographical gesture has many different interpretations through history, but often is interpreted as representing the connection between the earth and sky, the inner and outer world, the powers within and the powers without. On the table in front of the magician rest the symbols of the other 3 tarot suits, again the cups or chalices, the coins or pentacles, and the swords. Each of the 4 suits represent the classical elements, earth, air, fire, and water. In the Rider-Waite-Smith interpretation, the magician represents a skilled, self-confident, powerful, and daring figure. The people who interpret Rider-Waite-Smith with the Fool's Journey and sort of the significance thereof say that the Magician card is the second step of the Fool's Journey. Having sort of stepped over the cliff and survived that particular chance to fly or fall, the Fool encounters a magician, which signifies an opportunity on the path of the life for the Fool. The idea is that the Fool was carrying the suits in his bag and then unfolds them onto the table. Basically, all the possibilities are laid out. The opportunity for intellectual passion, communication, spiritual fulfillment, ambition, love, and success. With these tools, the Fool can continue on the journey and then eventually become the magician himself. The question, of course, remains, did the magician create the tools on the table? Did the magician put the tools on the table? Or did the Fool bring them to the magician? And the illustration of the magician in the Rider-Waite-Smith tarot deck was drawn by Pamela Coleman Smith to the specifications provided by A.E. Waite for the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn in 1910. According to Waite, the magician signified the divine motion of man and the unity of the individual being with all other planes. The magician represented knowledge and infinity. The lemniscate was also said to be a reference to the sign of life and its connection with the number 8, which in Christian Gnosticism is a symbol of a person's rebirth by accepting Christ. The lemniscate was the mystical number 8, the last plane above the 7 planes, representing heaven and the divine. In the Rider-Waite-Smith tarot interpretation, the magician signifies skill, subtlety, pain, loss, disaster, self-confidence, diplomacy, cleverness, and often the querent, but apparently only if the querent is male. In the Rider-Waite-Smith tarot interpretations, the reversed or ill-dignified magician card represents untrustworthy physicians, mental disease, disgrace, and disquiet. Thoth. In the Thoth system of interpreting the tarot, the magician is the Magus card. The Magus instructs the subject to find their true self, and that it is only through knowing themselves that they will know their path. The subject is instructed to create freely, absorb joyously, divide intently, consolidate completely. The aim is to know all and to be present in a state of omniscient gnosis. In spiritual matters, Thoth interpretation of the magician card, called the Magus card, says that it represents occult wisdom and power, mercurial knowledge, communication, and magic itself. In material matters, the Thoth interpretation of the Magus says that the card represents craft, cunning, deceit, and theft, as well as intelligent or clever business transactions. In positions impacting the present and future, Thoth interprets the Magus as a symbolizing new knowledge and learning that impacts the matter at hand and the necessity of communication with the true self. Golden Dawn. In the Tarot of the Golden Dawn, the magician is the Magus of power, which represents skill, wisdom, adaptation, craft, cunning, dignity, and intelligence. In certain draws, it also stands for occult and esoteric wisdom. Mathers. In Mather's interpretation of the tarot, the magician card is the juggler, and it represents will, dexterity, skill, willpower, and daring. In Mather's tarot interpretations, the reversed or ill-dignified juggler symbolizes will applied to evil ends, knavishness, a weak will, and cowardice. Attila, also called Jean-Baptiste Alliette, interpreted the magician as the illness card, which represented infirmity, sadness, anguish, evil, trouble, displeasure, harm, pain, misfortune, and disaster. Reversed or ill-dignified, Attila interpreted the illness card as representing mental illness, head injury, unfortunate situations, disgrace, trouble, anxiety, affliction, physicians, and magicians. A.E. Thierens. Thierens interpreted the magician as being the first step in the direction of manifestation. It represented potency, power, and the imminent state of beginning. The magician card symbolized mastery of nature, including mastery of the nature of the self. Thierens also read the magician card as signifying will, as it precedes action and unity with all beings. Thierens sometimes held the magician as representing an ascendant self, a reflection of the subject's higher being, that which it was possible for them to become. Thierens associated the magician card with the month of Aries, for will, from the 21st of March to the 20th of April. Paul Foster Case. Case used the interpretation of the magician that was Le Bateleur in his tarot. For esoteric purposes, Case associated Le Bateleur with both the lower aspects of Mercury, cleverness, dexterity, sleight of hand, subtle deceptions, and trickster humors, and the higher aspects of Mercury, the personification of the mind, Thoth of the Egyptians, the motive power of spirit, the elements of time, and the secrets of magic itself. Case referred to Le Bateleur as representing the key to Mercury, as signified by the caduceus, or wand of Mercury, held in the juggler's left hand. To Case, Le Bateleur, well dignified, represented skill, adaptation, constructive power, initiation, and subtlety. Le Bateleur, ill-dignified or reversed, was read by Case as meaning craftiness, self-illusion, lying, deceit, and cunning. P.D. Ouspensky. Ouspensky interpreted the magician card as being the first card, the ultimate higher consciousness, human logos, the penultimate human. To Ouspensky, the magician symbolized initiation, infinity, magic itself, serenity, and intelligence. The card represented the great magician, someone who knew all the mysteries of unearthly things. Now I'd like to just go ahead and move into the interpretations that I use and that I've taught most of my students. However, I want to make it very clear here that tarot is an incredibly personal thing and that everyone interprets the cards differently. And what's more important is for you to sort of figure out for yourself what works for you and what a card means when it comes up in a reading. So by all means, study broadly and learn from as many people as possible what a card could be interpreted as, and then decide for yourself. Any minute now. Keywords: consciousness, personal power, concentration, magic itself, skill, honed abilities, subtlety, the tools at one's disposal, self-confidence, focus, determination, initiative, daring, and fulfillment. Keywords for when it's reversed are manipulation, fraud, misuse of power, deceitfulness, loss of skill, and stagnation of abilities. Basic meaning: the magician is a card of employed skill, the use of one's own abilities and the tools at their disposal. Whether the card is interpreted as a sleight of hand artist or a street performer or as an occult magus, the card still represents someone who has honed their art and uses it to serve their ends. It can signify that the subject is in a position to gain control of their self and of their interaction with the spiritual realm and the mundane world. The drawing of the magician can mean that the subject has an opportunity to develop their mastery of magic, of their own spirituality, of the knowledge that they have obtained, or of another skill. The magician is also often interpreted as a card of creation. It may represent the shifting of energies to manifest the desires of the subject. The magician can also symbolize a period of exploration and searching, an attempt to comprehend all that surrounds the subject of the reading, and to use this knowledge to gain further mastery of the world. The card may be a reminder to the subject that they have the power to make a difference. in their own life and in the lives of others. The Magician card may also be the second step of the Fool's journey, or the first step of the Master's journey. The Magician sometimes symbolizes the power of magic itself, the use of otherworldly, occult, or esoteric means to influence the material world. The lemniscate, the infinity symbol, often depicted on the card with him, is frequently interpreted as a geometrical representation of the perpetual motion and interaction between energy and matter. The Magician is often depicted with the wand raised overhead. Some divinatory interpretations say that this represents the drawing down of divine power. However, this interpretation is not applicable in all depictions. The Magician presents on his table the 4 suits. When the card appears, it may symbolize that the subject is having the cards revealed to them, which represents the gift of knowledge and magic, wisdom, and advice. This could be a sign that the subject may be given a new idea, a vision, a magical breakthrough in their practice, or a solution to a problem. However, like all of the major arcana, the Magician card can symbolize either the subject, a force in the subject's life, or a person in the subject's life. The Magician can represent a person with power over the subject, for good or for ill, or a teacher that will help the subject pursue their mastery over their own life. When the card represents a person, that person often holds one of a few particular careers or positions in the subject's life, one that places them in a position of power and instruction. This person is often a mentor to the subject, intellectually, emotionally, or spiritually. They may be giving the subject new opportunities or much needed advice and wisdom, or they may have done so in the past. Meaning reversed. When the Magician is drawn reversed, it may represent that the tools at the Magician's disposal and the skill with which they are yielded are either no longer in reach, no longer applicable, or they are being misused. When reversed, the Magician can also indicate that the subject is hesitant about making use of their skills and the manner needed to resolve the task before them. The Magician reversed can also represent squandered knowledge and teaching, such as a person having a great deal of time and effort and skill invested in pursuing their life path and then being forced to pursue something completely different, where their interests and talents do not lie. It can also indicate that the subject is doubting themselves unnecessarily and causing themselves problems. Reversed, the Magician can also represent illusion and empty promises, trickery rather than enlightenment. It can also represent false power, manipulation, and harmful control. When using a layout that includes crossing or blocking cards, if the Magician is drawn blocked, it may indicate that the subject is unable to pursue all the promises of the Magician card. The subject's abilities are stymied, and their mastery over themselves is incomplete or inaccessible. The Magician reversed may also signify a trickster, con artist, or authority figure taking advantage of the position that they hold over the subject. If this card represents some magnetic person in the subject's life, they should take the time to consider whether or not they are genuine and not controlling or manipulating them. Past. In the past position, the Magician can indicate that the subject dedicated themselves to a particular path, which becomes the primary shaping force in the subject's life. It can also indicate that the study, efforts, talent, and hard work the subject has invested in the past may have given them a good foundation for their current goals. Drawn in the past position, if the subject has experienced a calling to pursue the mastery of a path or of a discipline, the Magician may represent the calling itself. It can also represent a figure from their past who influenced the subject's learning and passion for knowledge, a teacher or a mentor, and the lessons that they learned from said person. Past reversed. In the past position, the reversed Magician can signify that the subject squandered an opportunity to learn, or it can represent a time that the subject used all the tools at their disposal and applied themselves very diligently and still failed. It may also represent a force or circumstance beyond the subject's control that prevented them from being able to pursue a path to mastery that they were moving along. If it represents a figure in the past, it would likely be someone who deceived the subject about what they were going to teach the subject or guidance that they were providing in order to manipulate or mislead the subject. Present. The Magician card in the present often represents everything coming into alignment for a person to have mastery over their abilities, their surroundings, and the application of their skills to achieve their goals. If the subject is juggling a lot of responsibilities, then the Magician in the present can indicate that it is all about to get a lot easier to do so. The card can also signify that the subject is being offered knowledge, strength, and inspiration, either from a divine source or from a person in their life. Or they may have a new and significant learning opportunity, such as an apprenticeship wherein they can gain the mastery they need to succeed going forward. In the present position, this card can also signal that to the subject that there is some urgency in a situation, that the subject is being given a positive and important opportunity, and that they need to move forward with purpose and focus and confidence to accomplish their goals. The Magician is often read as a metaphor for ambition. Present reversed. In the present position reversed, the Magician can signify that the subject has all the tools that they need at their disposal in order to pursue their goals, but that they cannot figure out how to apply them. It can also symbolize that the subject is over-fixated on being clever or manipulative and not actually wise or learned. It may indicate an obstacle that the subject has encountered, which is preventing them from continuing to pursue the skills and abilities they will need in order to reach their goals, typically one which falls outside of their control. It can also indicate that a teacher or mentor is not providing them with the education or guidance that will serve them for the future. The teacher or mentor may mean well, but may be providing the subject with tools that simply will not benefit them, or the teacher or mentor may be deceitful or manipulative. In the future. In the future position, the Magician card can symbolize the work that a person is putting in now to master and hone their abilities and skills will pay off for them and allow them to become a master of their chosen field. It can also indicate that even if in the present the subject is struggling to keep everything in balance, in the future it will become easier to do so. The Magician in the future may also represent a calling or mastery that the subject has not yet achieved, and in fact may not yet have even been called to. The subject may be accumulating skills, knowledge, experience, and expertise, but not yet know what role they are accumulating them for. It may be helpful to pull a clarifying card to disambiguate. It can also symbolize a mentor or teacher who is actually providing worthwhile instruction that will culminate in the subject achieving mastery, even if what the teacher or mentor is providing seems incomplete in the present. Or if the subject has not yet found a master or teacher or mentor, the Magician in the future place representing a person can indicate that the subject will do so eventually. Future reversed. In the future position reversed, the Magician can indicate that the subject needs to adjust their efforts to hone their abilities. This may be either because the subject is failing to balance their efforts correctly, or because they are deceiving themselves as to the usefulness of the current direction of their efforts. It can also indicate that the subject may be starting down a path where they are likely to misinterpret their own skill level. The Magician reversed in the future may also indicate that the subject is currently acting as something of a dilettante, accumulating skills and expertise in a number of areas, but without a goal or calling that they are moving towards. If the Magician is being pulled to represent a person in the future position and is pulled reversed, it can symbolize that the subject is ignoring signs that a teacher is not a good fit for them. It can also indicate that the subject is seeking a teacher or mentor in a field in which they do not belong. Or it can indicate that in the present, the subject is ignoring signs that a teacher or mentor that they currently have is deceitful, manipulative, or controlling, and the harm that this is causing them will be far more apparent moving forward into the future. For work. The Magician card, when pulled for queries of work, often signifies that the effort the subject has put in to get where they want to be in their chosen field has paid off. They have the abilities they need to do their job, they are good at their job, and they are balancing the needs of their chosen profession quite well. It can also indicate that it would be a good time to move forward to a better position in the subject's chosen field, either through applying for a promotion or finding a more satisfying job elsewhere, or by proposing a new project at their current work. They may find that their suggestions at work are better received than they have been in the past. If the subject is juggling a lot of work tasks and has found that difficult in the past, they may discover that they are finding or will find it much easier soon. If the Magician card is drawn to represent a person in the subject's life in a work-related reading, it may symbolize their employer or an educator who will help them pursue better work opportunities. Work reversed. Receiving the Magician card in reverse for queries about work can indicate that the subject is experiencing difficulties in their professional life. They may not be able to use the skills they have trained in the way that they would wish to. For example, they may have gone to university and trained in one field, but be unable to find work in that field. Or they may be a talented artist, but one that is having to work in a profession away from the arts. The magician may indicate that the subject lacks the training that they need to take the next step in their field. Or it can represent that they have the tools and the training, but are not being given opportunities to advance and make any use of them. If the card represents a person in their present, the reversed magician may indicate a work offer that is too good to be true. Or it may represent a person who is taking advantage of the subject's lack of experience, or who is misusing the work and skills of the subject for their own ends. In love readings, if the subject is seeking romantic advice, the magician may indicate that the subject has learned a lot from past relationships' mistakes and is in a better place to pursue a more healthy, balanced relationship. It may also represent that the subject has put a lot of work into being a good partner, and it is paying off. If they are currently in a committed relationship, the card may represent that there are deeper levels of commitment and intimacy, in particular spiritual and intellectual intimacy, that they are experiencing with their partner or partners. If it is pulled in a place to represent their partner or partners, it can represent that their partner or partners is more experienced than they are, either romantically or sexually or both. Or it can indicate that the subject has sexual or romantic feelings towards a mentor or teacher. Be cautious of the latter, as this represents an inherent power imbalance. Love reversed. The magician reversed can indicate that the subject is losing faith in their ability to find and keep an intellectually and spiritually engaging relationship. It can also indicate that the subject is making the same mistakes that they've made over and over in relationships, and that they are not applying themselves to learning from their past. Alternatively, it can also represent that the subject is trying very hard and applying themselves, but no amount of effort or trying is working to provide them with the relationship they seek. If they're already in a relationship, the card in reverse can show a hesitancy to talk about what it is that the subject really desires out of their relationship, including a need to pursue their passions. Or it can represent that the subject is being manipulative or controlling of their partners, or vice versa, that their partner is being manipulative or controlling. It would be worth it to pull a clarifying card. If the card represents the person the subject is involved with and is drawn ill-dignified, the subject should take a long, hard look at the person they are involved with for tendencies of manipulation, control, and deceit. Finances. The magician drawn for queries of finance may represent an opportunity for the subject to make use of all their careful planning and set up to actually reap the benefits of their effort. It can also symbolize financial opportunities that will require focus, drive, and intelligence, but which can bring positive changes to the subject's life. If the subject has long been shuffling money around in an effort to meet a goal, they may actually be meeting that goal soon and no longer need to be so careful juggling their finances. Or it can indicate that they will need to juggle finances to reach a goal, but they are at least capable of actually reaching that goal. If it represents an investment opportunity, it is likely a positive opportunity. If the card represents a person, it may be a person guiding the subject's investments that the person should expect good things from, or it can represent a person teaching them how to better save and invest for their future. Finances reversed. When the reversed magician appears for queries of finances, it can indicate that the subject feels helpless or stuck, unable to make needed changes. Maybe there is an opportunity that they want to pursue financially, but they just can't shuffle costs in order to make it work. It can also represent that the subject is repeating financial mistakes they've made in their past when they should have learned better. The subject may have financially invested in something that they shouldn't have. There are times when no matter what the subject attempts or how much skill they possess, disaster or circumstance can impact their financial situation and render all their skill, their planning, and all the best efforts that they've made completely fruitless. Drawn reversed in a financial reading, the magician may indicate one of those times. It is possible to make every correct decision and still lose. If it is pulled for a person, the reversed magician card in a finance reading often represents a con artist or someone who guided the person in making unwise investments or financial choices. It can also represent a controlling or manipulative person who pushed them to spend more than they should have, possibly even as a form of financial abuse. Health. The Magician upright is a very positive card to draw for health concerns. It tends to be drawn for a person who has had to put a lot of work and effort into being healthy and who is seeing their health goals be realized. The subject may be recovering from a period of having to work hard to be healthy, and they may have just achieved a sort of mastery over their health goals. The Magician can signify strength and/or the return of strength or passion and fulfillment. It may also indicate that circumstances in the life of the subject have aligned in such a way to positively impact their ability to achieve their health goals, like getting health insurance. If it represents a person in the life of the subject, it may also indicate that the subject is working with a new physician or healthcare provider who is a master of dealing with the particular health concerns of the subject and who will help them reach their healthcare goals. Health reversed. The Magician in reverse for health may mean that the subject's fear and worry is influencing their ability to recover from a long-term illness. It can also signify that the subject is putting a great deal of effort and work into improving their health, including possibly learning from a great many sources or following the instructions of various involved people and physicians, and just not seeing that effort be rewarded with actual gains in their overall health. Sometimes the Magician reversed in a health rating indicates that the person has taken bad instruction on their health and is suffering the repercussions of that. If it is drawn to represent a person, the subject may need to question someone who is providing them with medical aid. The medical provider may not actually be as masterful as they present themselves to be, or they may be a snake oil salesperson who is misrepresenting their ability to help the subject, either due to malice or mistaken belief in the efficacy of the care they are providing. Spirituality. When drawn for spiritual concerns, the Magician is an extremely positive sign. The subject may have reached a new balance in their spiritual approach or attained a mastery over a spiritual goal. The subject may be pursuing new forms of spiritual study, or they may have a field in which they are practicing bring them to new levels of fulfillment. In a reading regarding spirituality, the Magician may represent a spiritual calling, either one that the subject is currently pursuing or one to which they are being drawn. If the card is drawn to represent a person, the subject may be finding new and fulfilling spiritual teacher or be reaping the benefits of listening to the instruction of one who was already present in their life. It can also indicate that an old mentor may have new and valuable advice, or that the subject should remember the advice of mentors from their past. Spirituality reversed. When this card appears reversed for queries on spiritual matters, the subject may have done all the study, gone to all the seminars, read the books, sought all the teachers, and still not found spiritual fulfillment. Or they may have found a great deal of effort being put into a particular spiritual path, only to realize that it didn't suit them, or that it was actively harmful to them. The card can also represent that the subject is seeking a spiritual path, an apprenticeship, or the opportunity to advance further in their studies, and that they are unable to find what they are looking for. If the card is drawn for a person, and it is reversed for spiritual matters, the subject may also have to take a closer look at their mentors and instructors on spiritual matters. The instructor may be a con artist, or the instructor may genuinely be offering what they feel would benefit the subject, but it isn't going to benefit the subject. Whew. Card combinations. When the Magician card is accompanied in a reading by the Sun card, the subject's drive to put all their skills together and achieve their goals is likely receiving a great deal of their energy, and there may be benefits to reap soon, but they may be tending towards selfishness or self-absorption. When the Magician is drawn with the Moon card, the emotional desire of the subject to get what they want or to pursue their path may be blinding them to what they already have. The subject could lose everything they have in order to gain one specific thing that comes at great cost. Or if the Magician is reversed with the Moon card, it may represent a deceitful person, either the subject themselves or someone in their life who's in the role of a teacher or a mentor. The Fool card accompanying the Magician can either be a very positive or a very negative sign. When the Fool card is drawn prior to the Magician, the subject may be taking their next step in the Fool's journey. Their risk, the potential folly based in faith, has likely rewarded them with new skills to help them further towards their goal. When the Fool crosses the Magician or is drawn ill-dignified or reversed along with it, all that the Magician offers may be coming at a large cost that the subject is naively ignoring or is unaware of. If the Magician reversed blocks or crosses the Fool, it may signify that the subject is not yet ready to start on their path, or that a teacher that promises to help them shouldn't be trusted. If the magician is drawn prior to the Fool with both upright, then it may indicate that the next step on the subject's journey to mastery will require a new leap of faith, or that the subject may need to go back to the beginning of their path and walk it again to learn new lessons from their current perspective. The Tower card drawn with the magician tends to represent the lightning strike that calls a person to a particular path, the dramatic, pivotal event in the life of the subject that presents them with the path to mastery. If the Tower is reversed with the magician upright, it may indicate that the subject is seeking the lightning strike and it has not yet occurred. If both are reversed, it may indicate that the subject was on their path to mastery and their efforts were negated by some form of disaster. The Devil card drawn with the reversed magician tends to represent a trap, someone who offers mentorship and guidance but really provides a cage. It is very common for the magician to be drawn with cards from the Wand suit. When this occurs, the wand tends to represent the position of the subject on the journey from inspiration to acquiring skills, abilities, and resources to actually attaining their mastery. The Four of Cups drawn with the magician tends to indicate a spiritual calling that is currently being presented to the subject. However, it is advised to examine the opportunity and ensure that it is not too good to be true or loaded with hidden strings. The Ten of Cups is likely very good to pull with the magician, as it tends to represent an opportunity for the subject to benefit from the balance they've worked hard on and all the skills they've trained in and get exactly what it is that they wanted. The King of Cups with the reversed magician may represent someone who is deeply emotionally invested in the subject's success, but who is also controlling in how they believe the subject should pursue that success. Questions to answer. What skills has the subject been honing? What goals are they pursuing? Have they been putting a lot of time and effort into it that has a chance to come to a new level of fulfillment? What are they juggling? If the card is drawn in the place of the subject, does the subject feel they are ready to gain mastery over a portion of their life? If the card is drawn in the place of someone in the subject's life, has a new chance for instruction or mentorship come into their life? Is there a person who is advising them on a particular path? Questions to answer when reversed. Does the subject feel that they put a lot of effort into something, but that they are not accomplishing their goals? Does the subject feel out of balance? Does the subject feel that they are failing to juggle everything on their plates? Does the subject feel that they are letting opportunities slip through their fingers? If drawn in the place of the subject, do they feel they may have been misleading themselves or someone else? If drawn in the place of someone in the life of the subject, does the subject have reason to feel deceived or misled? Have they placed their trust in someone or something that may be misusing it? And that's everything. Thank you for sticking with us through that massive info dump. If you like this particular kind of information, I encourage you to check out the rest of the Tarot in Depth series. There is a playlist to which this belongs. I also would encourage you to consider becoming a patron, because patrons get sent the tarot notes in basically everything that I just covered today as a PDF. Additionally, patrons of a certain level receive our booklets that we print as the Honest Witch Small Indie Press, and one of which that's been going out is sort of whatever tarot card has been completed that month in book form. All right, thank you very much for tuning in. Please remember to like and subscribe in order to see the rest of our content. And if you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments below, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. Be safe out there, everyone.